The Arizona Cardinals signed Josh Sweat and others. They're getting there. Still a long way to go. What do I mean? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, my timing, what's the opposite of serendipitous? What's the opposite? What a terrible time to post the show yesterday. And it was already in, premiere mode on YouTube. It was already on, audio wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, 3 minutes into the premiere, the Cardinals signed Josh Sweat. So I didn't overlook that. The biggest signing of the offseason, I didn't overlook that, for those that were wondering. Just bad timing. I'm trying, man. My head's on a swivel. I don't know when the hell to record. I don't know when the hell to post it. I have no idea. Maybe I'll just start doing it at midnight when I know no moves will happen. But then again, Adam Schefter's tweeted stuff late. We have no idea. But the good thing is the Cardinals signed Josh Sweat. They get their pass rusher, the top pass rusher in the class. 4 years, $76 million, $41 million guaranteed, which is exactly around the range that you'd hope somebody who may get more money elsewhere would sign that type of deal with the Cardinals. Okay, that's a Monty Austin-Fort special. It's probably in Spot Track is going to, and Over the Cap will expose, what the actual contract is. These things are usually 2-year, maybe 3-year deals, front-loading the guaranteed money. This is the Monty Austin-Fort special. This is what I said. So, yeah, it's 4 years. There's no way Josh Sweat is going to make an average of $11 million guaranteed a year for the contract. So the majority of it's going to be front-loaded, which is fine. So if it works, the Cardinals can extend him. If it doesn't work, they can move off from him, or they can restructure it, whatever it is. If it works after year 1, and especially after year 2, you can add money to it and extend it so you can kick the can down the road and give you some more cap space flexibility. What this does for the Cardinals right out the gate is it makes that 0-1 jump possible from a pass rush that was non-existent to a pass rush that exists. And all the stats come out. Well, Dante Stills had more sacks than Josh Sweat last year. I don't care. Josh Sweat is a bona fide pass rusher 1. Okay. And when I don't normally grade on a curve, I'm grading on a curve for this one because the Cardinals pass rush is terrible. It was terrible last year. And yes, B.J. Ojulari was out. And yes, Darius Robinson was hurt for the majority of the season. And then Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones got hurt during the first part of the season. So they had zero interior pressure. I know all of that. And Josh Sweat immediately makes this defense better. And the Cardinals didn't break the bank. They've still got $50 million to spend. Now that's going to dwindle with the other signings they made. I'll talk about those in the next segment. They still have some big needs remaining, but everybody can have somewhat of a collective sigh of relief for a couple reasons. 1, they got a pass rusher. 2, the defense is starting to form into shape. All it took is, there were only a couple glaring holes, glaring needs, and the Cardinals filled one. Okay, they're not done yet, but the pedigree that Josh Sweat brings, knowing Jonathan Gannon, Nick Rallis being his linebacker coach in Philly, them being to Super Bowl with Jonathan Gannon, winning one this past season, that's stuff that will continue to evolve this culture into a winning culture, bringing guys over that have done it before, bringing guys over that want to be here. That's the massive step that Jonathan Gannon and Monty Austin-Fort have been able to usher in over the last couple of years. This is the precipice of the beginning. It hasn't even started yet. This offseason is the offseason where you're starting to see, through Josh Sweat signing here, that the beginning of, free agents may want to come here to actually play football and not just make their last paycheck begins. Okay? So that's a big deal. That's a big deal. B.J. Ojulari coming back. Darius Robinson maybe being able to play more inside when you have more of a traditional pass rusher in Josh Sweat. Baron Browning adding to the edge rusher room as well. B.J. Ojulari played defensive end, hand in the dirt in college, okay, as well as rushing off the edge. So we could see a little shift depending on what scheme Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis want to put out there with the position players that they have. This is my thought process on, well, they signed Josh Sweat. They have Bijou Ojulari. They signed Baron Browning. Why would they need Trey Hendrickson? Because you could always have more good football players, and you figure it out. You figure it out. Trey Hendrickson plays hand in the dirt defensive end too, at times. So the Cardinals getting that 0-1 jump, as I mentioned, is fantastic. Winning pedigree, loves JG, loves Nick Rallis, just won a Super Bowl. I'm shocked that that's all the guaranteed money that needed Josh Sweat to choose the Cardinals. I'm shocked, truly. There were reports after, obviously, the Cardinals missed on Milton Williams. There were reports after I posted the show yesterday that Monty was trying to get both. It wasn't one or the other. He listened to Locked On Cardinals. He was trying to get both. And the 4-year 108 that the Patriots were able to offer him was just too much. And it makes sense. Okay? There's still some defensive line talent out there, not as much. Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen both ended up with Minnesota. And Grady Jarrett got a whole bunch of cheese elsewhere. So the Cardinals are in a better spot today than they were yesterday. My old adage, going back to the Steve Keim days, is any step that's not a step backwards is a step forwards for this organization. And that was not only not a step backwards, but also a step forward in its own right. So it's kind of a double whammy of positivity here on a Tuesday. Again, I have no idea what the hell is going to happen the rest of the day. I'm really trying. I don't know when to do it. I'm not going to do it at 6 o'clock at night. It's not. I'd rather be in the mix with you while I'm constantly refreshing Twitter throughout the day. But yesterday was a good day. Okay. And it also, like, the biggest thing for me yesterday, yes, they got the pass rush. Okay, that's great. I have a feeling, and we saw flashes last year, and while, again, it wasn't perfect in a vacuum last year because it didn't have a whole lot of help up front, the secondary is going to be the show. They're going to be the star of the defense. And anything the Cardinals can add up front to get any sort of pressure, whether it be off the edge or collapsing the pocket from the interior, to allow that secondary to thrive and not have to cover for 3-4 seconds every drop back, is going to benefit the Cardinals moving forward. Budda Baker is at a perfect time in his career. 30 years old, able to mentor while able to play at a high level with Garrett Williams and Max Melton. I couldn't help but think, and I'll talk about this in the final segment a little bit more. Damn. Drafting a DB at 16 sounds really sexy right now. Because it's in the same, it's in the same thought process that I had about the offensive line. Solidify a strength even more. Make it a super strength. Make it a super strength. And we don't know what's going to happen with the offensive line. There's still a hole at either right guard or left guard, depending on if they bring back Will Hernandez. If they don't bring back Will Hernandez, Evan Brown could play right guard, could play left guard, which leaves a hole somewhere. The guard money that is being thrown around is exactly the reason why, for months, I've been saying draft offensive linemen, sign pass rushers, sign interior defensive linemen. You can draft them also, but for impact makers, right out the gate, you want guys you've seen do it before. If you can find a guard at 16, or if you trade back in the 20s and you have him for 5 years on a rookie scale deal before having to give him $30 million a year, which is what it's probably going to be in 5 years, like the money that's being thrown around for offensive linemen this offseason has been banana sandwich. It's been insane. So that's why draft offensive line, sign proven pass rush and defensive line. So I think the Cardinals should go this offseason. And so far, so good. Josh Sweat, Arizona Cardinal. I'm stoked. He's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he's also significantly better than all of the pass rushing talent the Cardinals have combined, maybe times 2. The Cardinals signed a couple other players, both of whom will make impact. One signed yesterday, one signed today. I'll discuss them both next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by BetterHelp. Taking care of your mental health can feel like a big investment, but it's just as important as taking care of your body. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, but with BetterHelp, you can save up to 50% per session. BetterHelp offers a flat fee for weekly online therapy sessions, making professional support more accessible and affordable. With over 30,000 therapists and over 5 million people helped, it's the world's largest online therapy platform. We spend money on gym memberships and healthy food, so why not invest in our mental health too? And therapy is not just for tough times, man. It's a great tool for learning coping skills and setting boundaries. Your well-being is worth it. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/locked-on. So I know it's not an exact science with roster building, okay? I know it's not something that the only thing that I'm looking at for the Cardinals is their roster significantly better than it was last season? That's it. And it's not always offseason to offseason. Significantly better. Significantly better. It's not attainable most times. And a lot of times for winning organizations, you don't need to be significantly better than the year before. Obviously, that's the inherent goal of any team, is to be significantly better than the year prior. It can come in many different forms and fashions, what significantly better looks like. The Cardinals, luckily, since the end of the 2022 season, have started to just chip away. Okay, the secondary is terrible. Check. That was that past draft. The offensive line, check. Wide receiver 1, check. Like, slowly but surely, they're just filling voids on this roster. Slowly but surely. And then obviously going into this offseason, it was interior defensive line and it was pass rush, among other things. So the Cardinals have done things. They brought back Evan Brown. They brought back offensive line. They brought back Kelvin Beachum. Little housekeeping moves. Fine. Continue to just move the ball down the road into a positive direction. Keep that depth. You go out and make a splash signing in Josh Sweat. It's not $80 million guaranteed. It's very team-friendly. It's going to be a team-friendly and player-friendly structure, which is what Monty Osford has predicated his entire, free agent, mold behind. Are they getting better year over year? And this year, significantly, which I'll go much more to depth with, Seattle Seahawks and San Francisco 49ers, this is the year where there's a window for the Cardinals to skyrocket up to the top of the NFC West. It's there for the taking. And they're positioned much better than years past to do it, coupled with the fact that Seattle lost all of their offensive players. And I don't know if the 49ers have 53 men on their roster anymore with all of the free agent moves that have been made and players that have been taken from their roster. The Cardinals made another signing yesterday, Akeem Davis-Gaither. So I asked Jake Lisco from Locked on Bengals for I've watched a little film. I haven't gotten super deep on it yet. I asked him for a little blurb, and this is what he said. This is through Joe Goodberry as well, who's a big Cincinnati Bengals writer. He tweeted out, ADG is an athletic hybrid linebacker. He was often an edge rusher in college that can be a special team staple, which is good. A good athlete that has gained size and strength over his 5 years as a pro. He was a backup last year, turned into a full-time starter towards the tail end of the season. Had some mental mistakes, but generally a good athlete. He's a guy that the Bengals have been waiting to take a leap. And let's be honest, Lou Anarumo over there was fine, and then he wasn't as a defensive coordinator. I think Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis have the ability to mold this young player going into his 6th year into what they need him to be alongside Matt Wilson. So if ADG's the guy who's supplanting Kazir White, we'll see. I mean, super cheap. What's the contract is 2 for $11, $5 million guaranteed with escalators, like Monty Ossenfort special. It's a Monty Ossenfort special. And Middle linebacker is such an important position in any defensive scheme. But I mean, in Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon's defense, where there's so much fluidity, having that rock in the middle of the field is very important. And he's not great in pass pro, just like Kazir White isn't. It'll be interesting to see what they do. The linebacking core is going to be fascinating because Dennis Gardeck, Zaven Collins, even though they moved him to outside, like the Cardinals need as much help as they can get. So I wouldn't shut the door on Kazir White coming back, but we'll see. It's going to come down to money, and I'm assuming he could get a better opportunity elsewhere. But listen, if they bring him back also, I don't think that there's a downside to it. And then today, the Cardinals re-signed Zay Jones to a 1-year, $4.4 million deal. That's fine. They need a veteran guy in the wide receiver room. I was hoping they'd go elsewhere, but I mean, Keenan Allen's going to garner much more. I'm assuming he's going to want to either stay in Chicago or go back to the Chargers. And I know that was a very outside chance. Chris Godwin got all the cheese in all the world to go back to Tampa Bay. I think it was 3 for 66 with half of it guaranteed. That was obviously a pipe dream as well. There's guys like Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore and things like that. Zay Jones, even though he was pretty much forgotten for the majority of the season last year, good teammate. There was zero. I mean, he was happy to be here. There were no like, oh, Zay Jones is unhappy. Plus, he missed the first 6 games of the year, which is tough to do, especially when you're, not to say that he didn't deserve the suspension he got, but it's tough to do when you're going into a new organization. So, it's just something that it's another box checked. Then so be it. Very low impact, fills out the wide receiver room. But I do think, and this is something that, I don't know, call me crazy. Here's people calling me crazy. I think Michael Wilson and Greg, like if they do decide to tender, if they do decide to RFA Greg Dortch again, or actually give him some sort of semblance of a deal and implement him into this offense, I'm seeing on Twitter a lot, oh, he had his chance. No, he hasn't. Greg Dortch has not had his chance. Greg Dortch has not had a full year of, you know what? Let's scheme something up for the kid. Let's get him some opportunities in space. He's always an afterthought. Always, always, always. And he's always the darling in preseason and darling after the Cardinals get eliminated from playoff contention. Get him involved early. He is an absolute game breaker who's going to cost you $1 million or $2 million to bring back. You always need a speedy receiver, and the Cardinals don't have one. They don't have one. He's perfect. And I think Michael Wilson is very underutilized, and that's the thing. We're going to find out this year. I mean, he was a 3rd-round pick. So after this year, they're going to be able to kind of determine what they want to do. I know it's a 4-year contract. They're going to be able to determine what they want to do with Michael Wilson when he's been given the opportunity. He's produced. They've got talent. You bring Zay Jones in. A lot of this is on Drew Petzing and then in turn Kyler Murray to really expound upon the skill position pass catchers they have. This offense needs to go away from 70% running the ball on first down, 80% running the ball on first down, get the ball in Kyler Murray's hands more, throwing the ball more. And I know it's counterintuitive. You always have that rush attack. And this isn't like an 80-20, like ridiculous stuff where you're only shooting threes. That's not what I'm talking about. But they've got a lot of guys you can throw wide receiver screens to instead of running the ball or running the ball off tackle on first down and getting the ball moving down the field in different ways. And Zay Jones, it's not a step back. So fine. Big needs still remain. Massive ones. I'll discuss them next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every single damn day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you're going to get any money back. And then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find your every deduction possible and file every form, investment, and everything with 100% accuracy. All you do is just wait and get all the money back you want guaranteed, or not you want, all the money back you can get guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worrying. That's what taxes is. Now, get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available at TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. The Cardinals get their pass rusher. They add an inside linebacker to go along with Mac Wilson. And you know, here's the thing. They still have massive amounts of needs. And the big ones are still their interior defensive line. That's the big one. And the names are starting to get fewer and farther between. This is the list of names on the interior who are still available. Raekwon Davis, 28. He's going to be the most expensive previously from Indianapolis. Austin Johnson had some good years in Buffalo, but he's a vet. Greg Gaines, he's played pretty well. He's going to be 28 from Tampa Bay. Jerry Tillery, who's a hot name, and that's an interesting one. I'm not sure if they've at this point of recording, they haven't re-signed him yet. He is probably going to be on the move because Minnesota has signed, Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Payne, John Allen. So listen, the Cardinals are going to have to get creative. And while I understand my thoughts on the Cardinals drafting an offensive lineman at 16 is starting to wane, and I did say for all of the times when I'm discussing this that this is before free agency. I still think it's an absolute bona fide fool's errand to draft an interior defensive lineman and hope that a rookie will be able to carry that room. I think that's a fool's errand. Now, with Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones coming back, that may be the support that you need. You maybe move Darius Robinson a little bit more inside so he lines up over the guard instead of a DN hand in the dirt on the outside. It depends on what they do. If they do trade for Trey Hendrickson, everything changes. But that's a big need. Interior defensive line. It's a big, big need. And listen, offensive line still a need. They need a guard. If you don't protect Kyler Murray, none of this is going to work. And fine, if it's not Kyler Murray next year or 2 years from now. If you don't protect the quarterback, none of this is going to work. It doesn't matter how good everything else is. If you don't protect the quarterback, none of it's going to work. So both lines are still positions of need. It shows how far back the Cardinals have been in those two positions. Now, the offensive line played well through the bye week last week. The defensive line was decimated by injury, and you saw no production from the pass rush. This is, broken record. The interesting one for me is corner. There are some young corners that are still out there that won't garner a whole lot of money. Asante Samuel Jr. is a big name. Okay. It's a second-round pick a couple years ago for the Chargers. The Cardinals were pining for him. I was pining for him. They ended up going a different way. And that would be an interesting piece. Sean Murphy-Bunting is going to have one more year and then he's going to be gone. What if you can bring in a young corner who is a cap casualty for the Chargers? They wanted to go a different route. Jim Harbaugh wants his guys. And they may still re-sign Asante Samuel Jr. But if you can bring in a dude and not have to draft a corner in the second or third round, this secondary is going to be special. This secondary is going to be special in 2024. And I would assume that means supplanting Jalen Thompson with Adrian Taylor Demerson, or starting to see the eclipse of that happening this year and, him officially solidifying the strong safety position in 2026. But the needs are still glaring on the interior of the defensive line. The needs are glaring on the interior of the offensive line. And until those two are sewn up, I think the Cardinals need to make moves during free agency and then compounding it positively through the draft. It's a complete fool's errand in my part to wait to draft a defensive lineman and hope that he's going to spearhead the weakest position group the Cardinals had in 2024, in 2025. We'll see. Still very fluid. I'm hoping that something hasn't happened right now. I've been kind of looking at Twitter. I've been pausing. Nothing's happened. I guess we'll see. Locked on Cardinals, your team every day. Remember, without you, there is no me. I will talk to you tomorrow.